Welcome to a new series of Transit Bandit videos, Transit 101. Through this series, we'll talk about the basics of transit so you can go from a casual transit rider to a transit expert. So, what even is public transit? The key pieces of transit are the ability to carry multiple passengers and being open to all passengers. This rules out school buses and corporate shuttle buses, as these are restricted to students and employees respectively. While these types of buses can have their purpose, they're not public transit. Some might also argue that intercity services like Amtrak and Greyhound aren't public transit, as they're operated by private, for-profit companies and you have to buy tickets in advance. However, any publicly operated bus, train, gondola, or ferry service likely counts as transit. Now that we know what transit is, why do we want it? Politicians and leaders often give different reasons for building and expanding transit systems, so let's dive into each one. The first reason for transit is social good. Transit is the most accessible form of transportation for any type of person traveling longer distances. It's the most effective way to move low-income residents, people with disabilities, and those who otherwise cannot drive a car. According to the book, when driving is not an option, 1/3 of the United States population does not have a driver's license, and even some with driver's licenses don't have access to a vehicle. Transit means that every person is able to get around, regardless of ability or socioeconomic status. The second reason is to reduce emissions, or the environmental perspective. And yes, transit is significantly better for the environment than being in a car, even carpooling. Let's go into the math. A typical diesel bus has a fuel economy between 4 and 6 miles per gallon. On its own, that doesn't sound great. However, a typical 40-foot transit bus has room for about 45 seated passengers and another 30 to 35 standing passengers, while a car has room for 7 or 8 at most. Using an average car fuel economy of 20 miles per gallon and an average occupancy of 1.2 people per car, the bus would only need 4 passengers on board to match the fuel efficiency of the average car. The same is even true for electric cars. Since these cars still produce emissions from their tires and the production of the vehicles and their batteries, they tend to still make half the lifetime emissions of a gasoline-powered car. This means that you would only need 8 people on board the diesel bus to make it more efficient than an electric car. The third reason transit is used is to reduce congestion and overall car dependency of a city. Transit is great at this. There are countless graphics online showing the space taken up by transit versus if those people took their own individual cars. Buses and especially trains are far more space efficient in cities. We'll get more into the numbers in a later episode, but the basic fact is that a bus lane with any type of frequent bus service will always have a higher capacity than a car lane despite not seeing as many vehicles. In Vancouver, more people ride buses crossing the Lionsgate Bridge during peak hours than cross in a car, despite buses only making up a tiny fraction of the total number of vehicles on the bridge. Finally, transit is great at improving connections between communities. Not everyone can drive, and being able to visit friends and family in other neighborhoods and cities is essential for staying connected to the outside world and for your mental health. Humans are social beings, and transit allows this to be done in a way that no other mode of transportation can, bringing all types of people together in just one vehicle. So, why am I teaching you about transit? I've learned a lot about transit over the last several years, but it hasn't been an easy process. Despite transit playing such a major role in so many people's lives, there isn't a lot of formal education about it, and transit can be confusing. Why did your transit agency cut your bus route? How do transit planners decide where buses do and don't run? Where do transit agencies get their money? We'll answer questions like this and more through Transit 101, which I hope makes your transit learning process easier than mine was. Over the years, I've gathered a lot of information about transit. I ride a lot of transit. I don't drive, and I rely on transit for everything, from my commute to accessing healthcare and other services, to going to the beach or to meet up with friends. I've also gained some formal knowledge of transit. I took the only public transit course offered at my university and have read countless books, articles, and reports about transit-related subjects. I also taught an introduction to transit planning course at my university, so I have some experience with learning and teaching about transit. I also work in transit as a transit planner. But despite my obsession with transit, I'm still learning. Transit is a surprisingly large and complex field, and countless factors go into every decision. So I'll be learning through this as well and sharing my new knowledge with you. Before we get too deep, take some time to think about how you get around. How do you usually get places and why? If you drive a car, why? If you take the bus, why? If you ride a bike, why? Reflect on your transportation choices, what works for you and what doesn't. Because the point of an effective transit system is that it works well for as many people as possible, and in order to be a good transit planner, you have to know what you want to get out of your transit system. So, let's get started. I'm planning on making videos in this series at least once a month, and stay tuned for the first official episode soon. We'll start off with the basic building blocks of transit and work our way up to more complex subjects as time goes on. Feel free to leave any thoughts, questions, or suggestions in the comment section below. I'm so excited to go on this learning journey with you all, and I'll see you next time on Transit 101.